Jess Young, and I am so excited to be here with you today. I am the co-founder and worship leader of She Is Ministries, and I am so honored to just be here sharing with you just a little testimony of what God is doing still in my life and still the promises He's fulfilling. Some of you have heard my testimony before of just the deliverance of depression that God has delivered me from, and the shame and the guilt and the just the dark pit of hell that He has completely pulled me out of. But this testimony is a little different, and I'm just really excited to share with you today. So I'm going to dive right in. This was 2 years ago, in 2019. My husband and I had just gotten married. And we were trying immediately for kids. We knew we wanted them. And so we immediately started trying, and we're like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be easy. And it wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. And it took a lot of time. And so we began praying and trying to figure out, what we were going to do. So we ended up going to a fertility specialist, and just to kind of see where we stood and see if we needed help or if we need to take medication or anything like that. So we went, and the answer that we received was not an answer that I was expecting to get, and it completely threw me for a loop. The doctor told me that it was impossible for us to have a child without IVF, and immediately my heart sank. But at the same time, I was like, no, I'm not going to believe that. I'm not going to believe that is the only way, that is impossible for us to have a child without IVF, when God is the God of impossible, and God can do all things, that He is the God of exceedingly abundantly above all I can ask, think, or imagine. And so we really began to pray. But during that time, it still was just month after month of just the discouragement and the disappointment of starting, my cycle, and realizing that, okay, God, what is it you want us to do? What is the direction you want us to go in? So we began praying, and we finally, we kind of were praying, and still just nothing was happening. And that next year, 2020, we had planned trips. We had planned a Disney trip, and we were ready to go and everything. And then COVID hit right in March, and the trip got canceled. Okay, so it got canceled. And then we're like, okay, so we'll just go a little bit later, no big deal. Well, then it gets canceled again. So this was the third time our trip got canceled. We're like, okay, well, obviously we're not supposed to go to Disney World. And we see this as a sign. And so we're like, okay, God, what's going on? So we plan another trip to go to Bahamas. Bahama trip gets canceled. And we're like, okay, this time we're like, okay, what is it that you're telling us? What is it? Obviously, you don't want us to go anywhere. So we do see that. But what is it you're telling us? So we started really just believing that we were to prepare one of the rooms that we have. It was a nursery. And so we started to prepare it and turn it into our future child's nursery. So we got a crib, we painted it, we're like, okay, we're gonna believe that, this is his or her room, and we're just reminding you, God, of your promises. We're reminding you of what you have told us. So we started doing that. And we had actually, during this time, met up with a friend and a couple of friends of ours, and they were kind of going through the same issues that we were with infertility. And they had seen this urologist and in Dallas, and so we're like, okay, well, let's give this guy a try. Let's go see if we need some more answers or something on what's going on. So we started praying, and we were praying every step of the way. We were praying about what direction God wanted us to be in, what step He wanted us to take, where we were going. So we flew up to Dallas one day, and the crazy thing was that it was during COVID, and Chuck went in, and he was like, okay, me and my wife were here, and the nurse told him that I couldn't go back because of COVID. And so he came back to the car, tells me, and I was like, oh my gosh, what in the world? Like, we have had confirmation after confirmation that this is what we're supposed to be doing and where we're supposed to be and where we're supposed to receive our answers. So we we began praying. We're like, okay, we're going to pray that if this is where we are supposed to receive our answers, that the door will swing wide open. And sure enough, Chuck goes inside, and the doctor's like, yeah, bring your wife back, not a big deal. So we got some answers that day, and it was not that it's impossible for us to have a child without IVF, but that it is a low percentage for us. And so we're like, okay. So the doctor was like, I would recommend that you look for an IVF doctor in the Houston area and do your research. And of course, we prayed. We researched and we prayed. We researched and we prayed. And we found the perfect doctor. We went, and immediately the nurse was just like, oh honey, we're believing with you, and we're believing for Jesus, and we have faith in him, and like all this different stuff. And the doctor was amazing, just confirmed everything that we had received from the last doctor, from the urologist. And we began our journey. We began our IVF journey, and just got even more confirmation with that. We found out that our insurance company was actually paying a big portion of IVF, which is very uncommon. So even more confirmation that this was the direction that we were supposed to go to receive our promise. And so we started the medication. I started the medication, and it was a month and a half of just countless, about 40 to 80. I think it was 40 to, that's a big range, I know, but it was 40 to 80 medications altogether that I was taking, and it was 3 to 4 medications a day, and it was injections. And after that, we found out that I had 7 follicles, and they went in to do the retrieval, and they retrieved 6 eggs. And out of those 6 eggs, only 3 matured and 2 fertilized. And at first we're like, okay, you know what? At first I was a little discouraged. Like, I thought that there's supposed to be more than that are going to mature and fertilize. And that wasn't the case. And so again, we were just trusting and believing that God is a God of promises, and that he is faithful, and whatever he's doing, he has a reason for it. So we prayed about it, and we were trying to decide which one we wanted to transfer. And we prayed about it, and we're like, we're not going to put this in our hands. We're putting this in God's hands. So we transfer both of them in hopes that both of them or one of them would stick. So we began praying, and it was the transfer process was so difficult for me. It was the first time during the whole process that it was like completely out of my control. It's 2 weeks of and I know the whole thing was out of my control, but it felt like it was just 2 weeks of, I couldn't do anything. There was nothing I could eat. There was nothing I could possibly do that could increase my chances. We just had to have complete faith that if this is the child that God has promised us, that it's going to happen. And so we began praying, and we began believing that we were going to be pregnant. So it was 2 weeks, and we received the news on a Monday that at 2:30 p.m., I remember the exact time, and the nurse called, and she told me that, she goes, well, I have good news. But the way she said it was very like, well, I have good news. And I was like, okay, well, this could be any kind of news. So what are you going to tell me? And she said that the test was positive. Immediately, Chuck and I hit our knees, because we knew that this was the promise that God had for us. We knew that this child was a promise from God. And so we hit our knees, and we just began thanking him for how amazing he is. We began thanking him for just how faithful he is and how good he is. So we began just, okay, this is it. This is the direction that we had to go. And during this whole process, there has been a lot of obstacles during this pregnancy. There's been a lot of obstacles. By the way, I'm 28 weeks pregnant. But there have been a lot of obstacles for me during this time of just not questioning his faithfulness, but every single obstacle that has been thrown at us, we have known that it is for a reason, and God has a plan, and it's bigger and it's better than ours. Even if we can't see it with our eyes, even if we can't see it with our worldly eyes, that it is bigger and it is better than our plan. So I just want to encourage you today with Hebrews 10:23. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And that is just it's so amazing to me that we just had the whole process of us just believing that we were going to have this child, and the way God literally through every detail and everything, he was in it. And he had an intention in every single thing that he did. Even if we couldn't see it that moment, there was an intention for it. And there was something he was doing that was far bigger and far better than anything that we could have ever done ourselves, or the timing. Philippians 4:6 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." And that's what we did. We were believing, and we were just thanking God for the promise that he already had given us. See, because when Chuck and I, before we even got married, he had visions and he had dreams of our son and of our daughter, and he has seen them, and we knew that we were going to have children. And then I had visions and I had dreams, and I had been promised years ago that I was going to be a mom. Since I was probably 2 years old, since I could probably talk and walk, I wanted to be a mama my whole life. And so I knew that that was a promise, and that was a desire the Lord put inside of me to be a mother. And so we began believing. So there is a reason and a time for everything, a reason for every activity under the heavens. And there is, because there is a time, and God's timing is so much better than our timing. Our timing can't compare to his, because his is just it's on time, it's perfect, and he is working even when we can't see it with our eyes. So I just want to encourage you today, if you're walking through something where you're believing for a promise that you haven't seen fulfilled yet, stand on that promise. Believe for that promise. Believe that God is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he's going to do, and he's doing it right now. He is working it out right now, even if we can't see it, even if we can't feel it, just like Waymaker. If we can't see it, even if we can't feel it, he is working right now. I actually watched my testimony from a year ago, and I was talking about at the very end of how we were believing for our child. We were believing that God was going to give us a child. And it is so amazing to sit here today with you a year later and tell you that I have a baby boy. His name is Ryder, and he is on the way, and he is God's. He's not mine, he's God's. And we have completely just been so amazed by God's faithfulness and God's goodness. And I just want to encourage you today that if you're walking through something, if you're believing for something, if God's promised you something, stand on it. Believe his faithfulness. Believe that he is good. Believe that Romans 8:28, God works all things to good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. I love you, and I'm so blessed to have been here with you and to share this testimony with you. I pray that it encourages you. I pray that it touches you today. I pray that it fills the places in your life right now where you may be discouraged or disappointed, or walking through infertility, or standing in the gap for your marriage. Believe in the promises. Believe in those promises. And if you have received a promise from God, believe that it is yes and amen. And believe that amen, it means it is finished and it is done. I love you, and be blessed today. And I pray that you just have an amazing day.